prayer, and Maria and Slee.
Our Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for a great day, Lord. And we just ask you to help us today as we go through this meeting, Lord, that we make good decisions and that we make decisions based off of things that we think you would do. Lord, we thank you for this upcoming school year, Lord, and I just pray for all the administrators and the teachers and the students and the parents, Lord, that we all keep in mind that it's all about the students. Lord, we thank you for Jesus. We thank you for him dying on the cross for our sins. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Randy Rance.
Here.
Bo Barton.
Here.
Melinda Ballard. Here. Baron Glass.
Here.
Maria Bass. Here. Gary Castle.
Here.
Johnny Fallon. Here.
All right, item 8 is the executive committee report.
Went through all the checks, everything was good, sales tax is down. For the year total, I think we're down $11,294 total for the year compared to last year. That's it.
All right, thank you, Randy. All right, item B, review and vote on approval of the July 11th, 2024 board meeting minutes and July 30th, 2024 building, grounds, and land committee meeting minutes.
I vote to approve. A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, item C is recognize Kenny Higgins as the
Hold on,
officer of the month. Okay,
No, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
all right. Is he here? There he is.
Good evening. Mr. Kenny? Yes, sir. Come on up here. I got some nice things to say about you. Kenny is the most dedicated employee at CPJH. He is the first person at work and the last to leave. His work ethic is unmatched. He cleans the high school football stadium after games, teaches other custodians around the parish how to wax floors. He coaches football, basketball, and baseball at our school, as well as becoming a full-time bus driver last year. He is always positive and a wonderful mentor to the students. He keeps our school looking wonderful and has it ready daily. He is loved by everyone at our school, and CPJHS would not be what it is without him. It's my pleasure to recognize Mr. Kenny Higgins, Employee of the Month.
Speech.
I'd just like to thank, first of all, my principal for giving me the opportunity to come back in 2022. I met her after I quit for 2 years, and then Ms. Nikki just bringing me on board as a baseball coach, on top of all the other positions and stuff, and all the support staff. Like, I couldn't do my job without you people in this room and stuff, and I'm very thankful. It's very appreciated.
Congratulations.
All right. Item D is recognize Jumpstart Summers participants.
Well, I don't know how many kids here. Don't see them. Okay, so this summer was the first summer that we did Jumpstart Summers. It's a program by the state for CTE programs where students have to come, they have to earn a credit, they have to be paid to come, and they have to participate in a class, earn a certification, and earn some work-based hours. So this summer we did 3 programs. We did CORE, which is the safety certification they have to have before they can do welding or carpentry. We did CNA at the Haven, and then we also did logistics. We had a teacher come from Louisiana Delta Community College and teach students logistics. For the CORE, we had 9 students. All of them earned their certification. For CNA, we had 6 that actually completed the class. 3 of them fully passed. The others are going to retake to try to earn that. And then for the logistics kids, we had 8 out of 9 pass, and the other ones are going to go to Delta and retest with that teacher. Miss Shelley Barton was our CNA teacher, so I invited her to come tonight. If you want to say something about the program.
The 6 I had that completed, they were great. They were eager. They wanted to be there. Sometimes age is a factor where they can work, and we're working on that with Haven right now to try to kind of get that decreased, depending on their responsibility level or what we think they can do. I thought they did well for our first class. We ended up hunting and moving it to the school. And, we, I think, just kind of raided Coach Douglas's room. And I used his dummy and all his stethoscopes and blood pressure cuffs, and they just jumped right in, and they were very willing. They did well in their clinicals. I had I've talked to some of the nurses and some of the CNAs that had them, and they did well. And the ones that do have to retake, they do not have to retake everything. So they did well. They had like so many skills that someone just chose that came from the state, which is really a lot for them. And a lot of the CNAs they have there that are adults going through the program struggle and have to retake parts. So they really only didn't pass like one skill of the thing, and it's nothing we can't review, and all of those want to retest. So I told them I'll work with them and we'll make sure that they get retested. So I'm looking forward to doing it again next year.
So Shelley, when do they do the retake?
That is something that Alex and I are working on, because it has to be a certain number of people. You can't just retest because the state sends people. So that's what we're working on right now. It'll either probably be in Gina or Christy and I just said possibly even in Winsboro at their Delta. So I will probably set that up with those people just because you can't, they test all the time.
Is it like a long wait period? Because I mean, if they wait too long.
It won't be, and I'm not gonna review with them. Well, they can review on their own. They have their books and things, but the skill stuff, I'm gonna review with them probably within a week to 2 weeks prior to retake. So right now, we're trying to find a testing site so I can, and I'll take them if they need a ride to go retest. I just need to know so I can get it set
Who
up.
determines the testing site? And the reason I'm asking,
Yeah.
can Caldwell be a testing site?
No, it has to be
approved.
No, there's approved, and it has to be so many testers, 8 people. They don't come test without a certain number, and that's why people don't retest at Haven. Their own employees don't retest there. They go elsewhere. So I know Gina has a site, and Alex is waiting on a call back from a lady there to see if that's a possibility. But we will get them there, and get that taken care of, and I'll review with them ahead of time. But yes, that's what we're working on right now, and that I want to have in place. So for next time, we'll know, and I can already have it set up.
My last question, the 17-year-old, have you made any headway on that individual being able to work because of?
Not yet.
Well, I mean,
They haven't approved it yet. I've got to, I'm on it.
Well, if you and Nick and Ms. Wells can talk, because I think you can make the board aware that you do have some individuals that are capable of working, they're just not old enough to work. I mean, they put everything in that they need to put in, so you don't want them to be penalized and have to wait a year or so. So I don't know if you want to involve that, but Ms. Wells, if you guys can maybe talk with.
Because they only have to be 16 to
Right.
take the class.
Well,
Right.
and that's the
it's
thing.
just up to
And
who
to
hires
pass the
them as they
CNA,
have.
right, and so it's the individual businesses,
Right.
but,
We're not talking about all, we're just talking about those that qualify mature enough
Right.
to be.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So I use the example that if you can sell your own horses and drive the horse trailer to your rodeos and get your stuff done, you're pretty,
Dependable.
Ms.
You're
Wells,
pretty
you
dependable.
familiar with the young lady she's talking with? You think she's ready to? I mean, they need somebody to go to bat for them, because you start out as an amateur, and you don't become a veteran until you go through that stage. And a lot of times, they don't get the opportunity to get there unless they wait, till they get discouraged and they end up leaving, they go somewhere. So if we put these programs in place, let them be beneficial to them by, maybe offering them something that will hopefully, entice them to the state. Nikki, you know Brian pretty well. I know him, but I want to stay out of it. So if you guys can kind of, just if they are considerate versus not considering at all.
And I have had a few discussions on that already, and with them, because that's where that staff comes from.
I invited the logistics professor to come, but he's on vacation. But he's from Delta, so they actually sent him from Louisiana Delta Community College. And I've already told him, put us on the calendar for next year, because the boys that took logistics really liked it. They really had a good time with that. And then we actually took them, after the class was over, we took them to, my mind went blank. We took them to Mid-South Extrusions in Monroe. We took them to a poly processing that's off of Old Sterlington. And then we took them to the logistics, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the logistics part of graphic packaging. It's on the back part of graphic packaging. So they got to tour those complete facilities, and they actually got to see what they studied about all summer. And so that was really good. The only change we would make with that one is we would do our trip in the middle, have a little bit of class, take the trips, and then finish out the
I
class.
think the numbers increased this.
I think so, because I think they really liked it, so I'm hoping word of mouth.
Word of mouth,
Yeah,
absolutely.
will increase.
I would like to have some, I can have 10.
Yeah.
So I would like, you know,
Yeah.
What sort of cutoff numbers, 10?
I
You
can't
can-
licensure wise,
You can only have one teacher with 10 students per student.
which is the same with my nurses.
Right.
Well,
But I thought it was really good, it went well, and so we'll apply again next year for see how much money the state will give us.
That's right. Thank you.
Item E is consider bidding out carbon credits per update and recommendation from Building and Grounds and Land Committee.
Okay, here's the deal. We met the other day with Mark. And, talked about all our concerns. And I'm gonna give you my concerns and then go into basically what this is all about. The one concern I have is that we have apparently never had any kind of management plan on any of our lands, as far as timber or anything else. If we have, we sure can't tell.
You actually wrote out and
Yeah.
looked at it all.
Yeah, and the other concern I have is that this is a 40-year contract. And that's a legitimate concern, I believe, for everybody. With this particular company. I did find one, and I don't know that they're active in Louisiana, I haven't found anything, but, they start out with 25 years contract. But still, even at a 25-year contract, they're looking, quite a few years. The thing about the contract is that they can pull out of the contract, but we can't. And, they have an option, but we don't have an option. So we can try and finagle the contract somewhat with them. I would say this, we're probably better off with some kind of management plan as nothing at all. And what they would do, they would enter this into an improved forest management program, which is basically a state program or federal program, and that you could do yourself. And, but they enter in that program and you manage, the timber will be managed for carbon. Not for necessarily timber production, but for carbon credits. The select harvest, there are two ways you could go. You could go with the select harvest, which that's the only plan we really need to look at. The deferred harvest plan, we can't touch anything for 40 years. The select harvest, and I say anything, if they would allow, you could. But with the select cut plan, we can at least go in and have a harvest and make a cut and produce some income off of this other than the carbon credits. Basically, the land has been sitting there not doing a whole lot for the last, I don't know how many years. This does give us an option to basically in 5 years, now this is all an estimate too. And it's an estimate done from aerial photography. And you can cruise from aerial photography. And I assume they did it right. But so they're giving you some kind of an estimate. But it's an estimate. Until you put feet on the ground, you don't know exactly what you have. So their estimate is, in 5 years, we're looking at $323,000. Before that, you're looking at $15,000. This is not the savior of our money problems by any stretch of the imagination. This is not something that we have to jump into. And then after that, you're looking at basically 18,000 or 15,000 so a year after that. So you really, well, every 5 years after that, not every year, but every 5 years after that. So it just depends on what your mindset is going to be as to how this land is going to be managed it does need to be managed in some capacity. And in that capacity, you know, you would end up paying a forester, you know, a consultant to manage it, you're gonna end up getting, and, you know, we went through that with the cutting in Monday. And, we're really kind of lucky that they have been doing that. And, but you see what the cost is with that, what the forester got for that, and that's just for the crews and the sale. So, as far as recommending it, I would, judging by what has been done in the past, I would recommend we probably look into this. Go ahead and put it out. We can go ahead and put this up for bids. And you're looking at another month, 2 months, you know, before any kind of contract is signed. Go ahead and put it out for bids, see how it works, see what kind of contract, you know, I don't know, we could work any kind of different contract out with them at all. But,
We are gonna have legal look at this contract.
And that's kind of where I was, when I left the meeting, my understanding was, is we would just put it out for bid and see if anybody's interested in it. And then when we find out if they are, then we would have legal come back and look at a contract and see, do we have to go 40 years? Because we wouldn't enter into a contract, you know, that we didn't agree with.
and that's what I'm basically saying. I think that would probably be the way to go. It's not something we have to do, but at least we're moving with it. And if we decide, you know, after we see the contract, have legal look at it at that point, then we'll make the decision.
But
We'll go ahead and start moving.
I thought when the guy was here, I specifically asked him, he said you couldn't go less than 25. So we already know that, right? He said himself you couldn't go less than 25 years.
40.
Yeah, so,
He's 40.
yeah,
They're
so,
40.
right, and when we pay lawyers, Nikki, we have control of that. When we have bus drivers, we're in control of that. I'm not comfortable giving somebody 40 years to be in control of, and you got other boards that's gonna come, they're tied into something that we done. If it's a bad situation, they're stuck with it. The concept may be good, but the years is what bothers me. My job is to protect the interests of, not to give it away, and I think if I were to vote for that, I would be giving it away. But again, if it can be worked out to where it's a little bit more, you know, feasible. 40 years, that's what, 2 generations?
That's a long time. Well, like I told him,
And we're talking
I'm
about,
not gonna be around.
we're talking only 18 to 20,000 over 5 years, is that what you said?
Do what now?
You said it's only gonna bring in 18 to 20,000 over 5 years?
After the initial 320 or so thousand.
Right.
So we get 320 off the top.
Well, you get 15 just when the contract is let, and then in the 5-year period, there's a whole process.
That's an
going.
estimate.
Yeah,
It's gotta be approved,
It's
credits have to be
18.
approved, you know, it's gotta be cruised, it's, you know, you're gonna have, and basically what they do, they'll come in every 3 years, and they'll do an inspection every 3 years, and every 5 years, you'll have a full carbon inventory, and the carbon inventory is gonna be done through ACR, which is a carbon accreditation. And through ACR, they have to accredit all the carbons that the carbon that is there. They have to, you know, they're gonna
They
cruise
have
it,
to agree to it.
and they have to agree to it too. So it's gonna be, and at that end of that 1 year period, that's gonna be done. They'll do their inspection, they'll do their cruise, and then everything will basically be done within that 5-year period. And then when they have it sell, then you're looking at estimated 300,000.
So how do they benefit from doing it?
Well, they're getting, we're only getting 30% of the carbon,
And they're getting
and
some.
they're getting 40.
But if it was over that amount, we would get 50%
Right.
of the extra.
Yeah, if it's over $15, we get the price of carbon. You know, these are carbon offsets, by the way, that we're selling. We're not selling carbon credits, we're selling carbon offsets. So if carbon is at 15, which it basically is right now, if it goes to 20, we get 50% on those carbon offsets. And then if it goes to 20, we get 80% of those. So it does pick up if the price of carbon goes up.
It can.
How much land we talking about?
700,
741 acres.
something like that.
So, and all that land's got timber on it?
No,
Oh, yeah.
no, not by any stretch of the imagination.
None? some?
It's got some, yeah.
So that's not something we could go in if we got in a bind and said, hey, let's go cut this timber.
Well, if you,
No.
if you,
I don't feel like
Well,
that,
there's
but it
one
happened.
tract, there's
Okay,
one.
so we don't have 741 acres. So basically, we got land sitting there that we're not getting nothing for.
And hadn't been.
It
hadn't
hadn't been
Yeah.
for,
So-
as long
And
as,
it's not being managed.
no.
It's not.
And that's what they said, you know, they'd come in, they would manage or tell us when it needed to be managed. Maybe it needed to be thin, so it could grow better. We would then take on that to, you know, get it thin, and then we get the sale of that, whatever. I mean, that's all up to us.
That's
They're
us.
not
And they wouldn't
asking.
require us, they would just say, hey, now's a
Suggest
good
it.
time.
Now's a good time.
Recommendation.
Oh, yeah, they could care less where it goes, this cop, because it's there, it's still there.
That's right.
but 1 + 1 is not equal to 2. They can leave whenever they get ready, but you can't.
Okay, and that's not good.
Yeah, that's,
I don't get
I'm,
that.
that's off the table for me, plus the amount of years. That's giving them too much control over a body that has a control to say, yeah, they're in the driver's seat, we're behind them.
Okay, but basically what they're saying is, and this is true, you know, doing all this, managing, isn't free.
That's if they want to buy the land.
They've got, you know, they've got
We
money
don't.
invested in it. We don't have a penny invested in this. We're not gonna lose any money, you know, as far as investing, have to invest in something like that. We still can select cut our timber. So it's a kind of a, yeah, I agree totally. It's 40 years just don't sit right in my mind, but also,
But we're not losing any
it's been
money.
sitting there doing nothing for, I don't know how many years.
We're not losing any money.
Yeah.
And we
Not
have
losing.
possible to gain money. And we can still cut select timber if we
Right,
need to.
right. Yeah, exactly.
If they tell us.
The
to.
timber's
After
ours.
10 years, I believe.
Right.
See, it's
And
too
look,
many, it's too
and if
many
we really
ifs.
want, if we really want to have a contract, we could go in there and clear cut it, and they
And
say,
then they
well, we're
say,
gonna try,
we're dropping
heck with that.
it.
You know, we're done, y'all.
That's-
No bargain.
That would be kind
So
of.
Randy, you done a lot of legwork on this. What do you think?
Here's what I think. And then, and I, like I'm saying, I think, judging by the way it's been done in the past, and unless we change our goals in the future as far as managing this, and part of it is almost impossible, but, I think we would be better off with something rather than nothing. We're not losing, you know, we don't have to invest anything in it, we're not losing any money. They're taking the risk and everything. They might look at it, you know, look at this in 1 year or 2 years and say, hey, you know, we don't want, we want out of this. Well, we hadn't lost a thing if they do that.
Can you go back to them and say,
But we still got our land, we still got our.
we would strongly consider it if you cut it to 25 instead of 40?
Yeah, we can do that. I don't see why we
Fair.
couldn't do that. I don't see why we couldn't throw that, you know, but,
Fair.
Why not try?
but that's what I'm saying. We're not signing a contract. tonight.
25 instead of 40?
That's all they can tell us is no.
No, that's it.
There are other parishes that are doing this, LaSalle Parish, he named.
And that's where I got the idea
There's
from
5 or
the
6
bidding
parishes
it
that are
out.
actually doing this, yeah.
He's talking.
5 or 6 out of 60.
Well, he had approached.
He probably gave us a local
Yeah,
parish.
he had approached everybody.
I just look at, you know, logic, when the iPhone update comes out, nobody do it immediately because you wanna get the kinks out.
Yeah.
This is something that's fairly new. I'm not interested in giving up the power and authority that I have, and there's another subsequent board that may be coming that's tied into something that I did. Okay, when I first got on the board, there was some of those same things that had happened, that's why we couldn't change those, so I'm a little bit more apprehensive to do it.
I will say one thing. These carbon credits, they're gonna be here.
Yeah.
3 years from now, when there's another board, they'll be here. 10 years from now, there's a whole different group of people, they'll be here.
But if a better deal comes up,
and
they're
the
tied
price-
in, right?
And the price, no, what I'm saying is,
If
You
we
don't
don't
have
do
to
it
do anything.
now,
You
then
can
it's
do it.
not.
We don't have to be in a
they're not
hurry.
going anywhere, this land,
Yeah.
no trees, they're not going
I think
anywhere.
that's what
unless we-
Barron was alluding to. If
Yeah.
we wait just a little
It may
bit,
get better.
Right.
Let
It could
somebody
very
else
well
work the
be.
kinks out.
But let me tell you, 25 years ago, when I first ever heard of the carbon credit in forestry, I was going to meetings and they were saying, this is the great, you know, the great redemption of the South, better than cotton. You know, this was gonna be, you know, carbon
Same.
credits, because we had all the fiber in the South. The rest of it's tied up in federal lands and they can't do anything with it. But the South has all the all the fiber, all the carbon credits. The majority is in the South, boy. And this was gonna be, and you saw a lot of people with money going out and buying tracts of timber, buying tracts of land. They wasn't doing that necessarily because they wanted to hunt on it. They were looking at that. And they were looking at that for future, farthest in a lot of ways. And so it's been going on for a while. It's not something that just started, but it's just now getting to where the guy that's got 40-acre tract here, 100-acre tract here, can get involved in it. It's just now getting to that point. This particular company that's doing this is out of Arkansas. The only people in Arkansas that do it. There's not one in Louisiana right now. So yeah, it's a new thing. It's not something that's been around for a long time. And carbon may go up, carbon may go down. Depends on, sad to say it, depends on the politics of the time. So carbon may go up. But as far as Europe goes, they're the one that buy most of it. Most of these carbon offsets are bought out of Europe. They're not bought in the United States. So Europe is Europe. So they're not changing a whole lot. So it's one of those things that, it can go up. Heck, I don't know what's the limit.
So we're just considering this, we're not voting on this.
What I'm saying is, what I would say is here's what I recommend. I recommend we go ahead, move on it to the point where we can go ahead and put it up for bid, put it out for bid, see the contract, review everything, and look at everything, because I hadn't seen a contract. Nobody in this room's seen a contract. We're not gonna say we're gonna do something without reading the contract.
And we can write the bid to say we can choose not to accept, correct?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so there's no
Even if we bid it.
skin in the game by
doesn't
saying
mean
we're gonna put up a
that
bid, we could always come back and say, we decide not to.
Yeah, we could go ahead and start moving on this, and then,
Let's
look at
move
it.
on and revisit it. That's what I'm.
Yeah, move on it in that way, in that manner, and then revisit it.
If you're
about
putting out
2 months
bids,
from
you're
now.
asking for other companies to make an offer,
Right, and you
so,
might,
and you might.
Here's one of my other analogies. Sometimes you meet a man or a woman, you know from jump, you don't want to be with. You don't even entertain it. I'm not interested in entertaining this, so I'm gonna vote no.
so we're at a point where we need to go ahead and put it up for a vote, I guess.
We would have to make a
Now,
motion, need a
I
motion.
What do we
guess-
vote
Go
for?
for bidding it out?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to let bids out, not approve, do it.
So let me
We
make
just
sure I
want to
get
put
it
out a
right.
feeler.
You're just putting it out there for,
Right.
lack of a better word, curiosity, to see what's out there.
Right.
Okay, but we're gonna come back for a final vote in the event that the contract and all this other stuff came. Okay, well, I can go with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
talking
we're not saying if we vote yes tonight, we are doing it.
No,
We're signing a contract.
we
No,
won't do that.
no.
But Randy, you were supposed to convince, but Maria's actually convinced.
But you figured it out.
I'm so lost in that
I'll make a motion, we move forward on Randy's suggestions and throw it out there and see if we can get a better deal and revisit it on the next board member
So,
or
Randy,
meeting or whenever.
Where would it be bid
Maybe
at?
a few months.
Just in Louisiana or?
Yeah, it'd be a lot, I guess however we put it in the paper.
I mean, on this one, I would consult with LaSalle, see how much
So we don't
more
know.
exposure
Yeah.
they're giving.
Yeah, you're gonna
Because
need
you
more.
can't put it out there on a national platform somehow,
You may need a mail out bid.
yeah. So, I mean, there's avenues. We've never needed to know those, so I never have.
How long, what's the term of the bid? How long? 2 months, month, 30 days?
We gotta advertise on this probably 2 times, I think sometimes the story, what it is. That's something I like to research. I didn't research anything until I knew what I
I'm saying, do
needed.
you think you need a longer process, bidding
It
process,
very well could, because it's
since it's
kind
new?
I think
of,
you
well,
would,
it's property
Yeah.
and grounds.
just for the nature of what it
Right.
is.
Yeah.
So, what, 60 days?
I would say at least 60 days.
I'm just trying to give you some flexibility now, so we don't have to deal with
No,
it.
I agree, and
Yeah.
I mean, this getting to where I need to call John Guys for guidance, because I don't want to screw this up,
Okay,
so.
Well, I second both.
because if they would, if the years would be reduced, I wouldn't have too much of an issue.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was some cancelable concept that he mentioned, I forgot.
After 5 years, if we felt like they weren't holding up their end of the bargain, then
Okay.
we could back out.
So
After
we-
5 years.
Well,
But
I mean,
that's it.
5 years.
After 5 years
Within 5
passes.
years.
Yeah.
Within 5 years.
After that 5 years, that's
Well, I
it.
mean, see, I would be okay with that, as long as we have something to say that, you know, we can get out of it if we wanted to. So
Yeah,
if
but
it's
if-
5
if
years
we
now, I'm
get
okay
to
with
the-
it.
Before they're throwing any money,
Yeah.
say we can get out.
Well, that makes sense for them. I mean, they're looking out for their interests.
Exactly.
So I don't, I mean, I'm okay with it now.
But I
for the
still need,
entire
I mean, I
concept.
still think we need to see a
Yeah.
contract.
Yeah.
No, before we.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yes, you already seconded it.
Or roll call.
What do you want to do?
Roll
I
call
don't
it.
care.
I'll roll call it. Mr. Randy?
Yeah,
Mr. Barton?
Yeah.
Ms. Ballard? Yes. Mr. Glass?
Yes.
Ms. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Castles?
Yes.
Ms. Patton?
Yes.
See, Nick, and again, this goes, Brandon, when we talk about stuff and get an understanding, it makes it a whole lot easier and a whole lot better, rather than just, you know, doing it.
Throwing it out.
Yeah, it's easier, so, 'cause like I said, I'm just protecting the interest of the board, or at least trying to, not that nobody else is, because I trust Randy's judgment in what he's done, and I know that he's done his homework. I'm just stuck with somebody tying you into, I think
And
marriage
we
is
all
kind of like
felt
that.
the same way. That 40 years was a hard,
You know, marriage is kind of like that, Dave.
The biggest risk is whether you, carbon credits go way up
Right.
after we bought,
Mhm.
after we've got the money. You know, are they gonna be worth more in 4 years, or are they worth more today, and then they'll go down? I mean, I don't know.
So if they go up, what happens? We,
Get it more.
you get more
After that threshold.
right. So like if it's 15 and then it sells for 20. 15 is our threshold,
Mhm.
but it sells for 20. We get 50% of the
20.
5.
Above, everything above 15.
Everything
you
above.
get- Yeah, you get 30% up to 15 and 50% for everything above 15.
it goes above 20, 80%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everything above 20.
is that fair, good, equitable?
It's market price.
Yeah, 15 is more.
But in the event that it goes up, we get more money. Yeah.
We wanted to go up.
Yeah, Dave, just, if you can just kind of work around and keep him posted on, where we're at, it'll make it, you know, a little bit easier.
Yes.
So 60 days is what you put in your, motion.
Okay. Very good.
All right. Item F is consider approval of policy update file JGCD administration of medication.
I didn't run the whole
That's fine.
policy, it's 13 pages, Amy's here to talk about it. You wanna talk about it?
Well, the gist of it is that there's a new law that dropped right before school started that the previous year or two, we were allowed to have Narcan, a stockpile of Narcan in every school, and EpiPens. Now, with the new law, we are required to have Narcan, a stockpile of it in
Every school.
every school.
Can you explain what Narcan is?
Narcan is, if someone overdoses on opioids, Narcan is a reversal for that. So if we have a drug overdose at school, Narcan can save their life. And it can be used for students, teachers, visitors, anyone on our campus. That stockpile could be used to save a life. So it's a requirement. We have to do it.
When you say stockpile, like, is there a certain number, or you just have to have
There's
it at
not
your
a
school?
certain number, it
So you-
just says you have to have Narcan available.
So you can have one, I guess is what I'm saying, because I'm looking at
You
cost.
could have one, there is no cost.
Mhm.
For this, there is a program, I actually already have a
Good bit.
box of free Narcan in my office, ready to go. Let me tell you who provided it. The Northeast Delta Human Services Authority
Dr. Sykes.
provides that. So, and they're very
That's what it was
gracious
in town.
to give us free Narcan. So,
For every school, I'm sorry, so for every.
we have enough for every school, yes, ma'am. Yes, It is, there's also a requirement that, if you have it, your staff has to be trained in order to give it. Before school started last year, because we were hoping we would migrate this way a little earlier, so last year, before school, I went ahead and trained the whole school system pretty much in how to use it. Now, I would feel better if I did a refresher. So, Vicki and I had talked about me maybe doing a little video or something that they could put out and everyone, again, be reminded, just because it's so hard to get back individually with every staff member, we could do a training that they could access online. But they did get that in person last year, but a year is a long time to remember that. So the same with EpiPens, epinephrine for if they have allergic reactions, we can have stockpile of that. I also have gone ahead and requested, there is a program that provides free EpiPens. EpiPen for schools is what it's called. We do have to have a doctor's order and some standing orders for that for both of these medicines, but Citizens Medical Center, Dr. Head, has already signed orders, he's already signed standing protocols for when to use it. I've already requested the EpiPens from that program. They've approved it. We're just waiting on them to mail them to us. So, same there,
Is it, the amount that you, get for these, schools, is it you get one for so many children, or?
The way it works is they give you 2 boxes of EpiPens for each school. So that's what's provided. And each box has 2 EpiPens in the box. So there would be 4 EpiPens at each school.
And if you have to use them, they replenish them?
Yes, ma'am. I would just contact them and let them know we had to use it, fill out a form, and they'll send requests.
So the kids that have to have an EpiPen, they won't have to do the doctor's orders for them anymore?
They would not have to. If the parents choose to not sign in their personal EpiPen, if that student did have an emergency, it could be, they could just use from the stockpile. And that would be a great thing, because there's also another law that is not good, in my opinion. It says that if a student, if a parent wants to sign in an EpiPen to the schools, there are 2 routes they can go. Either the student is capable enough to self-carry if their doctor says they can, and I agree that I think that they're able to self-carry and self-administer, they can keep that EpiPen on them and take it everywhere they go. If they're not able, and I had 2 parents calling me just today wanting to sign in EpiPens, but if they're not competent, if we're talking about our little kids, kindergarten, 1st grade, the youngers, that they are not capable of understanding the concepts, knowing when to give it, how to give it. In those cases, those parents, the law says they have to provide a separate EpiPen for every single class that child is in through the day, that has to stay in a locked box in that classroom. It can't go with them. So at Grayson Elementary, they would have to have 5 EpiPens for one student in every class that they go to. Insurance won't cover 5 EpiPens. And they're expensive. So what happens is our students just don't get EpiPens signed in, and they're just hoping for the best. So if we had this stockpile of EpiPens in every school, that would relieve a lot of pressure from our parents having to worry about that, because realistically, if you're at the high school level, hopefully they could all self-carry, but then you might be talking about 7 or 8 EpiPens for one student if for some reason they could not self-carry. So I definitely would give a thumbs up on that.
And Mr. Council, if the board can consider adding yearly training, with not word of mouth, but in the policy was yearly training to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. And in the event that it's not, then it's already there, so we're pretty much, protected. Do they get a certificate of any kind like CPR, or they just have to be trained?
They just have to be trained, and I would think that there would be a way, possibly, that we could maybe work with Michael Boy about getting that into the yearly trainings.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is I know some training, you can just go and you don't do anything, just 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. That's not training, because you're talking about administered medicine, you're talking about a person's life.
Right.
So what I'm saying is I would like to make sure that what we're supposed to do as a board, that we're doing it, and if they can do what they need to do, because you're talking about a kid's
And there's
situation.
also the option, if we didn't, like if I didn't do the training, there are online options, like nationally, that it's specified in the law what is required of the training, like what topics you have to cover. So, like if we use if we use the EpiPen people's, their own training that they put out there for how to use their EpiPens, that sort of thing is an option too. So that, there are different avenues we can use, but I do agree that I think it's a good idea to have some sort of,
So
refresher every year.
this does require to have the authority to, you have to be a school nurse or trained school employee, and it comes down and says at least one employee of each school shall receive the training. And so what we could do is if we do the video, we could show it like in a PLC or a TCP and have a sign in where everybody sits and watches it together, and we sign off that you have received your training, and then we have the documentation.
Yeah, as long as you don't forget yearly.
Yeah.
And you can come right here and David can put his flower shirt on, you can be looking at the camera and do a video. You can make a 45-minute video.
Do we have training for other things besides that, like for recognizing the symptoms of diabetes, asthma, things like that for all the
but
people?
I am up to my eyeballs in providing trainings for just any topic you can think of. Yes, sir. Like with our diabetic students, every single teacher that might be, and staff member that might be responsible for them, even our bus drivers, if we have a diabetic student, all of their staff has to meet. And I go through what they need to be looking for and what they need to be doing. And then we have really detailed training for the people who would actually be taking care of them, beyond just needing to recognize symptoms.
That's what Amy's been doing since she got back to work.
All
Train
day,
people.
all day, every day.
I think the reason why I'm asking, because we had CPR training for the Supreme Court. We went, I didn't know no more when I left than I did, but I passed it.
When you go
Yeah.
through CPR with Amy,
If you go through my class.
Well, it should be. That's what I'm saying, it should be, because you're talking about life or death.
Right.
And if you're saying that you're going to training, you should get something out of it, but unfortunately, we didn't. Because they were just getting paid to do it, they wasn't worried about when you got the information. So if somebody fell out right now, I still wouldn't know what to do. And I've had the training.
Just feel free to just come on over to the nurse office
And that's part of the
I'll let
reason
you
why,
know.
like, Amy made the decision, I mean, she just read, you were only required to train one person at each school, but in the event of either one of these types of emergencies, do you really want to try to find the one person? So Amy, came to us with the suggestion of like, let's go ahead and train everybody, so we tried really hard to.
How many students we got that's got this type of medication?
with our EpiPens, probably, well, we probably had less than a dozen EpiPens signed in last year, but we have just dozens and dozens.
But if they have, they're supposed to be signed in, right?
If they have, no, sir, the parents don't have to sign them in.
They don't?
No, sir. They can sign them in if they would like to.
So they have a controlled dangerous substance walking around at school?
No, they don't have it.
No,
They can't bring them unless that's on them.
right, if you're talking about
Okay,
EpiPens.
yeah, right.
EpiPens cannot come to school unless it comes through my office
Right.
and gets signed in.
But are we sure that they're not coming in? How we know that they're not coming in?
Well, short of risking them,
Well, I'm not trying to tie up, I'm just trying to familiarize myself with it,
Right.
you know.
That would be just like it, we don't know what comes to school in their pockets unless we're checking them. But, I would think an EpiPen would be one of the least wanted things for them to slip in their pocket. And, I mean, epinephrine is something that our body makes, we just get extra of it in that pen. So it's not the same as a, as a narcotic or their Ritalin that they could sell to someone, something like that.
Do we have a motion to approve this policy?
I'll make a motion that policy be approved as read.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, item G, is consider a resolution ordering and calling an election on December 7th, 2024 to be held in Consolidated School District Number 1 of Caldwell Parish, Louisiana, to authorize the renewal of the ad valorem tax at 8.90 mils therein. This tax is for operation and maintenance, is split 50/50 between general fund and maintenance fund. This tax brought in approximately $648,600 in fiscal year '24.
Is this what it's always been, 8.9?
It varies depending on, property values.
What was it last year?
Remember, it was in the 8.9 range, I think it was 8.97.
I make a
Property
motion
values
that-
went up.
I make a motion then that we consider it and approve it.
I'll say that.
All in
But
favor,
it's
say
gotta
aye.
be a roll call.
Okay, gotta be a roll call.
Mr. Barton motioned and Mr. Randy seconded, right?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Rance?
Yes.
Roll call. Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Glass?
Yeah.
Ms. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Castles?
Yes.
Ms. Fallon? Yes.
All right, item H, discuss 2024 league results. Ms. Christie?
Scores came out a little earlier this year. Normally, they don't come out until the last week of July. I'm sorry, I had vacation planned, and I know everything started coming out, but we did have a 30th wedding anniversary, so we went on vacation.
You stayed in James for 30 years?
I-
36. Just married 30.
But anyway, so as soon as I got back, I started looking, and just so you know, as we look at this, I know Ms. McCann
I did
sent you
a
and
copy.
put it in your folder. These scores, what we're looking at, this information is very raw data. So it's just basically what was put out there, and it doesn't reflect what will be SPS when we get to that point, which will be probably in November. Because there's a lot of factors that still have to be gone through and looked at before actual SPS comes out. We still have to do data certification with the state. We still have to pull kids that were not with us for a full calendar year. All students basically were looked at with this. So when you're looking at your chart, looking at proficiency, when we look at proficiency also, which is basic and above, so basic, mastery, and advanced. The state has gone to looking strictly at mastery and above. We're students at mastery, which is basically mastery and advanced. But we still look at proficiency because basic still gets us points. And when LEAP started, basic was kind of where you wanted to, that was our first goal. And now our next goal is mastery. And then when you look at the high school on the second page, we also included passage rate, because when you look at the high school and you look at EOCs, kids have to pass the EOC to graduate. Well, that passage rate, they only have to score an approaching basic to pass in order to graduate. So we look at that too, when we're looking at scores. But again, we also look at proficiency when we look at mastery. Some of the areas that we have to celebrate, we saw a growth in both proficiency and mastery in third grade science. We saw some drops in third grade, but we knew there were some achievement gaps with third grade going in. And Maria, as we go through this and kind of talk about it, students have grown a lot this year in third grade.
Christie, hold on. Say that again. You said that we knew that there were gonna be some drops, because if I didn't know that.
Well, the students that were entering third grade, these were our students that already had some gaps because when they were in pre-K and kindergarten, that was COVID. And so there were some struggles with, catching them back up to where they should be.
And that's where I really rely a lot on Maria with her literacy data, and she presents that, several times a year, and they're doing the MTSS at the schools, and she has been telling me, and telling the committee, of the list. Yeah.
But what we have found is that now, what we're seeing matches, they have grown, they were basically almost 2 years behind, and we brought them up to where they needed to be. But what we're looking at is that now, because they're where they are, their growth target for the 4th grade is gonna show a greater impact, because they're gonna be able to grow. And we have already knowing what we saw, and it really brought these hard conversations brought in for us to say we gotta do a plan, and which we had already implemented a plan in the middle of the year. But because of our system in class, the state, we had it, but the state closed it, and then they used it as the testing portal. So we didn't really have true access to the intervention piece of it until February, March. Yeah, but now we've already have, like LDOE's gonna come in and work with the 3rd and 4th grade ELA teachers. We started looking at student and work analysis last year, but now there is another tool to help support the teachers. We've had one of our own teachers do presentations on what group work looks like in the classroom, because we're still pulling out. And so there's some things that we've already made a plan, a drastic plan, but to make sure our students are gonna be growing, to show that growth in 4th grade, hopefully to catch them up more. Because like I said, they were already behind, and we had that discussion, and we put the things into place. But you gotta realize it's hard to grow kids 2 or more years in 1 year.
But what year was COVID?
The 3rd graders were kindergartners the year we came back. When they were in
They
pre-K,
were pre-K when we
we
went
went
home.
home.
So these kids were in pre-K.
But the problem is when they were in kindergarten was the quarantine.
2021.
The 2020 and 2021, we came back and you were quarantined for 14 days if you were anywhere around someone who was a close contact. We've been tracking them kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade with no test data.
With that being said, I'm looking at a -11 and 3 ELA, but I'm looking for a +2 and 4 ELA, and I'm looking at a +5 in, a +3 and 5 ELA. What, were they affected?
Oh, everybody's been affected.
But
It's
but those 2 grades are moving
But
up.
where they were affected was where they were learning their phonics and how to read.
The
Other
foundational
kids that would have,
skills.
they were a little ahead, so I mean,
I'm just trying to figure out how they were, they should have been affected too. They should be negative too.
Everybody
We're
has
going
been
on the theory of,
Not as effective
I'm not going on the theory of COVID affected our 3rd grade, and our 4th and 5th graders should have been affected too.
But you have to take K-2, you're learning to read. That's where you're learning letter sounds, putting words together. So when they went home, and then you gotta realize they came back, we had masks on, and when you're trying to say the sound "ah," and they can't really see your mouth, they were dependent on your oral listening skills. So 3rd grade going into 4th, they had already had that foundational skills. And so we're trying to rebuild our 3rd graders with the foundational skills of letter sound and how to decode, how to put these words back together and blend them into words and build comprehension as well with that. So
Well, here's what concerns me, more if we're gonna get involved in this deep. Here's what concerns me. The 3rd grade, 75, ELA was 75%. Those 3rd graders were 4th graders this year. They're 61%. That's a drop of 14 points right there from 3rd grade to 4th grade. The math was 57%. They stayed even across the board. Science was 43%. We actually went up in science from 3rd to 4th grade by 8 points. And that's good. 4th grade ELA, with the 4th grade last year was 68%. This year it's 69%. So we went up 1. But comparing oranges to oranges rather than apples to oranges.
yeah.
The 4th grade class from last year was 68% efficient in math, 52% this year, a drop of 16 points in math with the same students. Science was 69% last year in 4th grade, and 48% this year, a drop of 21% from 4th to 5th grade with the same students.
Right, well, I don't know if Christie may need to answer this. Classes, they'll change, right?
Yeah.
The students, it's really not that same student every year. Sometimes you'll have a kid come in 3rd grade, right, and they
Yeah.
still counted in.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And we've actually had a conversation, and Ms. Adams, if you wanna speak to what we have found with the math.
Well,
Hold on, Kim, before you go. Every principal should be here tonight because I have questions after question after question. And I guess my problem is, Maria, is that, you know, every month we sit and listen to reports. And I don't want to add a dirty laundry right now because I didn't get a chance to come and talk to the superintendent today. I'm upset. This doesn't look the way that it should. I said last year, if the scores this year wasn't as good as they were last year, we need to make some changes. If we don't make any changes, we need to bring something in to help those things that we need to change. This is the second year that we're going in the wrong direction. I said when we talked about the centers that there was going to be what you call an implementation deal. That was kind of pushed to the side. So it seems like it's, let me just be honest, it seems like we're just being told stuff just to get over to the next day. There's no offense to the superintendent, nobody, but I'm tired of that. We need to know exactly what it is that needs to be done, because what's being done right now is not giving us the results that we are expecting based on the information that we're getting on a monthly basis, that this is working, we're getting this score, but these 1 plus 1 is what the kids say, it's not math. So I'm looking at you, but I'm not talking directly to you, because I want all of us to succeed, and I know this should be a concern, and I'm almost certain that it is. It's a concern to me because I don't want to lie to the public and say, well, we got all this stuff going great. It's 10 or 15 or 20 columns. 10 of them, we're in the negative. That's just not good. So hopefully when we do meet, Nikki, that I don't want to hear from you guys anymore. I want to hear from the principals, the teachers, and because they're, and then we have to look at when we have to replenish teachers. We have to bring new people in. They have to learn all over again. We're not, I don't know if we're addressing those things. I know we can't do anything.
Constantly retraining.
I don't know if we're doing anything about. It just bothers me that we got issues that we never talk about. We always, there's some good, and I want to celebrate the good. I definitely want to do that, but I don't want to leave the misconception that, you know, we got icing on the cake, and we got some issues, we got some problems, and we got some situations, Superintendent, that we need to look at changes, or putting other barriers around those things that need to be changed, because we don't need to keep sinking. You know, I just left, before I came here, one of the parents, I don't know how they got the information, but, you know, they knew more about this than I did. You know, so there's an awareness that, you know, the issues exist. So my job is to let's accept everything that's here. We say that we're a team. This team is going to have to dig deep. Superintendent may have to look at making some decisions that she may not want to make. Because at the end of the day, if wife ain't doing well, husband ain't doing well, sometimes you have to leave them. And my point is, if we got people that's not performing, we may need to consider either replacing those people or putting somebody there to help those people, because I don't want anybody to lose their job. But I want those kids to get a quality education, and this is not good, in my opinion. Can it be better? Yes, I'm hoping that we can get it there. So it's not an indictment on anybody. It's just the fact that let's accept what the reality is. Let's look at what the facts are, and let's move forward. And if we're on that page, I'm on that train. But if we're going to try to, you know, gloss it over and all that, you can count me out, and it's going to be worse than what it should be.
Our students are growing, they're just not growing at the speed we need
Yeah.
them to.
And that may be the case. So if we conclude that, I'm perfectly okay with that. But I think when we hear something, we kind of look at it.
I would like to take some ownership for that.
well, I was gonna say, when she presents growth, you're talking about literacy, and the kids are growing, you may be moving a kid that was a high unsat to a medium approaching basic,
Right.
or a low approaching basic to a high approaching basic. So they are moving, But those are still zero.
But I guess I wanna see, I wanna see moving here.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, this is what counts.
We have to meet kids where they are and try to move them.
Before said, I don't want anybody going and saying that the superintendent was under indictment, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we all have a responsibility, and I hope that we all accept that responsibility to move forward. Let's be honest about what we're dealing with, and let's move forward. Yes, we didn't do as well as we wanted to, but hopefully we can, because I believe that you are not a failure, and I believe that you want to do as good as you can. And that's why I said, when we talk about certain things, we have to just be mindful that Maria made a mistake. Okay, what can we do to help Maria? Bear made a mistake. I'm saying we've made some mistakes. What is it that the board may be able to do? Maybe hire somebody else. But what I did find out, and I'm glad that I accepted it, the integration at the high school. I think not only should it be 9th and 10th grade, I think it should be 11th and 12th grade, because that's going to be a game changer.
We're just starting small,
Yeah.
and the plan is to move. So I would love to just accept some reflection on this. When I sent y'all this last week, after Christy got back and crunched the numbers, I color-coded it all, and I was like, this is not what I was hoping for. I was thinking, yeah, no, Barron's implementation dip is not gonna happen, we're gonna get there, but it made us have some conversations. And then Randy called me yesterday, and he came and talked to me, because he had looked at it and he wanted to have some questions, and so I had to reflect on that. And I think what happens is, they do tell you the good things, they tell you the positive, because we're trying to keep everybody built up, but we're working hard on the negative behind the scenes, and we don't always air that out. And so that's why when I said the message today, I thought, we do need to involve the board more in having these
Well, I'm gonna get
conversations.
involved more.
And so that's where I feel like is a growing point for me, is, we can't have all this. There's a lot of data in here that's buried with specific teachers, specific content, specific students, that we can't necessarily have in an open meeting. But I would love to get to a point where every time we have data come back, we schedule kind of some roundtables where we can sit and you can ask questions and we can pull individual, because I do think you need to be more part of the conversation. I didn't realize until Randy brought it to my attention yesterday that it did look like we were selling the positive, and that's what we do in our natural relationships anyway. We don't tell everybody all of our family drama. We put out that, and I think in our effort to try to make teachers, because they're working so hard, and they're underpaid, and they're overworked, and you hate to beat people down, but you also have to have conversations where you sit down and you're like, and they've done a lot of reflecting. When I called them in, we've met probably 3 times since you came yesterday, where we sat down and I said, I need to know this, I need to know this, and so they have notes about what to do. And so when I schedule those with y'all, I'd love to sit down so they can say, this is what we're going to do. These are the people we're calling in. We've qualified for additional grants. Trying to get more people in. We're writing a high dosage grant right now for $75,000 to get more structure. And who are we gonna target? We're gonna target our 4th and 5th grade math, because looking at this data, that's where we are not meeting the needs. And so I accept that responsibility for making it all look positive. Was not my intention, and that's a change we need to make, so that we are, every time your literacy data comes out, I'd like to schedule these so that we can sit down and really look at what these gaps are and how they may transfer to. The other thing, just to kind of say that, is this, you can look at data so many different ways. Like, the state reports it the way I gave it to you, but you figured out what we always do, and we track that cohort as we go through. And even with the cohort there, it's not gonna calculate to SBS a lot of times, because some things are worth points and some things are not worth points. And so where you may see some things go down, you're actually gonna see some growth when it comes to calculator, high school.
Yeah, because we'll get progress points on those kids who grew, again.
And they're not counted
Once
here.
that to approaching basic, they'll get extra points because they actually grew, even though they didn't get any points on, the test. So we'll get those progress points when we actually do SBS.
Well, this is one of the reasons I don't care for testing.
Absolutely.
Can't stand testing, because the truth of the matter is, I can take a football team and I can sit down and watch film with them, and I can show you where kids are performing at 80 and 85% to what they're supposed to be performing at, and we can still lose the game. And it's frustrating as a coach, it's frustrating as a teacher, it's frustrating as an administrator. When you go in there and you bust your tail, and you try to do all the things that you need to do, and then the scores don't reflect
Absolutely.
what you think they should reflect. And that's extremely hard. That's tough to do. But what I don't do is I don't sugarcoat nothing. I can't stand sugarcoating. I can't stand bringing up things from 5 years ago like COVID. I can't stand that kind of stuff. I mean, the bottom line is, if my offensive tackle's not blocking that defensive end, there's a problem with that. And the problem starts with me as a coach, that maybe I'm not teaching him. Then the second thing comes when maybe his position coach is not teaching him. And if he can't teach him correctly, then I'm gonna get another position coach. And then the third thing is, sometimes we can't do nothing about this one. Maybe that's the wrong kid in that spot. Sometimes you play the cards that you're dealt with, and sometimes that may be what we're dealing with here. We may be dealing with some things that these teachers are doing the best they can do with what they got. And but sometimes I'm like Barrett, sometimes change needs to happen. And but we gotta keep swinging. We gotta keep fighting. And I just believe that we lost some kids, and I know we did. And I know that the kids that we lost brought these scores down. There's no doubt in my mind. But people are losing kids everywhere. So we gotta find a better way to attract more people and good test takers. Because if we're gonna go on, we're gonna judge a superintendent and her team by test scores, then we gotta find a way to get some good test takers.
But that's the responsibility you was given when you got on the board.
I agree.
You take what you got and do the best you can with it. And all I'm saying is, I think we all are supposed to be a team. And you be honest with everybody on that
Straight
team.
up.
And we move forward. So that's why I'm saying it's not an indictment on any one particular person. What I'm saying is, let's accept whatever it is that's there, and let's try to move forward. But I will say this, and I mean this, those principals should have been here tonight, because there are questions that I wanted to ask them specifically. Now, I know it's not a requirement, and I'm not saying that we should make it a requirement, but when it's stuff like this, they should be there, because it takes the pressure off of you, because I can't ask you what a principal's doing. I can ask you what you've told them to do, but I would like to know, what are their thoughts, what would they like to see change? What are their teachers thinking? All this, that, and other, because I think the entire motor needs to be a part of the collection, and we only get, top, not that you guys are not doing it, not that it's not being done, but sometimes giving feedback and getting feedback from everybody, for me, it helps me to be able to moderate. So again, if I hear tomorrow, somebody's gonna get cursed out. Superintendent's not an indictment from me, nor is any administrator. What I'm saying is that those principals and where both directors are here, they should have been here. James, so I might be able to ask you, since you was a high school principal. No, but seriously, Nick,
But I can, and if you'll sign up to come, I can get the principals here for this. Because I absolutely, that's not a problem. I can get them here. So, I'll just put that here.
Any other questions?
what's the plan moving forward? No, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
I crunched the numbers.
And you're a really good number cruncher. You make us look really good, I'll say that.
And I'm assuming SPS probably November,
Cause I was
yeah.
one
We're
of,
just gonna start data starting with the state on everything.
one who messaged you on your vacation, and I was almost about to tell you to come back, cause I wanted to know, cause everybody else is having theirs, and I'm sitting there saying, well, why is Caldwell always late, But you did a
I'm
good
sorry,
job,
I'm
Chris.
trying really
Yeah.
hard.
Well, you did a good
When
job.
they take a vacation,
No, don't interrupt.
I tell them, turn your phone off, do
Yeah.
not work, I need you to get away, because the phone never stops.
And normally it is the last week of July before they put that stuff out, but this week they said, we'll put it out the week of July 15th, and I'm like, they're gonna wait till Friday. And they did.
This is another factor that's thrown into this. It's just like getting new players. I mean, we've got 20-something new employees here.
Absolutely.
And these principals have got to go, okay, well, she's certified or he's certified here. Last year he taught English, well, maybe this year, because he's got dual certification, he has to go here, but let's put her here. and it's a whole new training there. When you lose the amount of employees we lost and had to replace, that administrator, that's a job, and that's tough to do. So that's another reason our scores are like
And
that.
it is, and we're feeling the hurt too, because even the larger districts are not finding teachers. So the people we used to get, I mean, I was at, Weekend of the Cross a couple weeks ago, and Lincoln Parish is still looking for a math teacher. I was looking for a geometry teacher, and they were still looking. Jefferson Parish has 150 vacancies today.
So that's 4 days, no longer a benefit for us.
We're running people out of the education. I mean, we lost certified teachers this year who were just burned out and tired and needed a break, and you can't say, no, you can go home. Your test scores are excellent, but you've gone home. I mean, it's a hard position, and it puts us in a very tricky spot, because we're trying to grow and we're trying to build, but we're not trying to demoralize
So-
as well.
Do we get federal money for scoring so high or something?
We get federal money for scoring low.
So what- I mean,
It's
one of those
Yeah.
questions I already knew the answer to, I just
Yeah.
wanted you to say it. So we get federal money for scoring lower.
We do.
So
We do.
my question is, why are we so adamant about scores?
Because of public perception.
Okay, good, that's
That's
another,
it.
I already knew the
Yes.
answer to that
Yeah.
question too, so I
Yes.
wanted to say it.
Well, and now with the ESAs, I mean, and even right now, if you are a C or below, you can take our money and go to a private school. That's what this is all. I think the scores are there to judge schools, so that people have a tool or a measuring stick to say this is not a good school, and send that. If you do have parents who are just like, I want my kid to feel loved and love school and learn and enjoy learning, and that's the way we grew up. I mean, I envy the principals who didn't have to deal with test performance. I mean, you took your CAT test, I think, and Iowa test, and it was nothing. And now everything is held to a test, and it's a test that I don't
To the
necessarily
SRA.
believe in.
Yep.
I'm that old.
A child,
That's all right.
Absolutely.
Well,
if
and
they're
it's
basic or
a
something.
test that keeps changing, and they don't always give us the curriculum that's right for the test.
Well, that's one thing Ms. Adams brought up about the science group. It was a brand new science, test that did not match the curriculum
That the state.
that the state gave us. And so, you're doing all the things they tell you to do, but you're not seeing the results. And literally, when this came out, I mean, I was ready to like, why am I even here? We put all this in and it doesn't show. But I'm not a failure. They're not failures. We're gonna get through this.
I mean, like Barrett says, it is what it is. Now we're gonna move forward
Absolutely.
and figure out what we have to do.
Absolutely.
Keep working.
And there becomes a time where you feel like, and they've heard me say this, I'm not looking for excuses, but we do have to identify the problem so that we know how to work. And just like Maria said, if they missed out on all that phonics, we're having to catch them up, and not only catch them up, but get them on grade level, as you're double timing.
And see, that's what I'm getting at, Nick, identifying the problem.
Yes.
The teachers can tell you what the problems are versus the principal telling them what to do. That's what I'm saying, if you put everybody in this bowl and let all those conversations come out, I think you'll get a better version.
And they do have those when they're content meetings. The missing piece here is I've not done it with you. And I didn't realize that until Randy came yesterday and opened and I was like, yep, you're right. So I've got to put something in place where I do a better job of not just telling the good, but telling this is where we have. So.
Nigga, you're supposed to tell the good. That's not what we're saying. I think you just have to add the other to it. The other layer. And I think, we get a full picture of what's, because again, when I'm listening every month, I'm looking at all the good. So if it's all good, it shouldn't be bad here, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. But the public perception is something that's different, and our job is to be able to explain, to the public, Facebook warriors or whatever, that there are some things going. That's why I've always said, when we have stuff that we're doing, it should be advertised, it should be marketed, so they can't say, well, you're not addressing this issue. Well, we are addressing those issues. I mean, you can actually look now to see that we're doing those things, but we just gotta do better. I just like accepting the good and the bad. If you don't like me, fine, tell me, I can deal with that. But I don't like you to just be walking around and smiling and joking, and you stab me in behind my back. That's just not, a good thing. So I apply that to this. If we all can get to where we need to be, because I don't think none of us want to say that somebody's failing.
No.
And I'm not saying that we are failing. What I am saying is that we can do better.
You know, I'm a firm believer in the fact that, this state is trying to, is setting our local school systems up for failure. I believe that's what they're doing, and I know the reason they're doing it. And that's what concerns me so much is, but even though they are doing that, and even though they are setting us up for failure, we're all in the same boat on this deal, you know? So, and that's what I was trying to stress with Nikki about, was that, if you don't know anything's bad, then you don't think anything needs to be corrected? You know, so if everything's good, then there's nothing to correct. But we've got to know, as board members, and as everybody in this system, we need to know if it's bad. When I ask somebody a question, I expect them to tell me the truth. You know, I don't expect a sugar-coated thing. I expect the truth, and if it's bad, it's bad, and if it's good, it's good. But if, like I said, if we don't know anything's bad, then we can't correct it. You're not gonna tell the truth, but we all need to be on the same page, including everybody here.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just make sure the principals know that I had an issue with them not doing it.
David, you up?
You need your wife to hold you up, man.
Is it one page?
That's all right. One page each. I forgot to copy that whenever I was running on this. We'll go over that last, but it's really not much to it. I sent this out to y'all earlier today. It's 10 pages, and I'll be very brief. General fund, originally scheduled a budget of $350,000 deficit. Then last month I got a little paranoid and I bumped it up to $400,000. Thankfully, everything I was concerned about came out favorably. So we have a $213,000 decrease, which it's hard to get excited about a decrease, but it's not $400,000.
David, where were we last year at this point?
Last year at this point, we were $615,000 still
Good.
deficit. Now, you gotta remember, we had a $404,000 timber sale. Had we not had the timber sale,
We'd be
we'd
right
have
on
the
the
exact same number. So, I mean, there was a lot of effort, every time I saw we had extra money laying around in our checking account, I sent an email to Nikki to ask the bank to transfer it over to money market, got an extra $100,000 out of that. So, we did that,
All the time, we do this all the time.
Quite, especially for the weekend.
I'll get a text that says, check your email, before 2 o'clock.
Yeah, before 2 o'clock. We picked up a little bit of extra money on property tax, about $150,000, and again, on interest revenue, we had an extra $100,000. Contributions, we had the $45,000, it's non-cash, but we got to book it for the Spartan statute. Timber sales, the $404,000. State revenue, that's the one that's we're just hemorrhaging. We originally budgeted $12.8 million, came in around $12.48 million. So we had about a $400,000 decrease there. Other sources, indirect costs, we originally budgeted $286, we got $376, and that's because we were spending heavily on the ESSER money, more than I thought we would, so we had an extra $90,000 there. That will go down quite a bit in this upcoming year.
It's done.
Yeah, so, on page 2, salaries, we were pretty much right in line. We kind of came below a little bit on the original budget, revised budget, spending $8.1 million. Benefits, we were down a little bit there, fortunately. Let's see. Decrease of around $70,000. Purchase professional services, professional services, I think is the rest of that. This one went up quite a bit, but don't freak out. The original budget was $189,000. It went up to $372,000. A lot of that is caused by the Medicaid billing. We moved those out of Medicaid fund, which is 21, and into this fund, so we can bill for it. And we get reimbursed on that side of it, whereas previously it was not reimbursed. So that's a good thing that it went up. Purchase services, let's see, we're pretty much on track on that one. I'm gonna skip past. Other services, this one went down quite a bit, $795,000 was the original budget. Came in at actual $201,000. This is where we moved the insurance costs out of Fund 1 and into Maintenance Fund. And that was to bolster our 70% requirement. That changed just by about 4%. That would give us easily above the 70% instructional costs. And whenever we did that, we had to transfer the money to Maintenance Fund in order not to exceed Maintenance Fund. So it was a dollar-for-dollar transfer, net zero effect. So, but it's playing the game with the state, I believe it's 70%. Supplies, that was negligible. Property, detailed what we spent money on. The last, other objects, negligible. Other uses, that's where the other side of the transfer going to maintenance fund came into play. So we had a small budget there, 42,000. We grew that one up to 632,000 to cover the insurance costs. In the red, I discuss that every time, but we're at the mercy of the state on MFP funding, and for every student we lose or gain $8,000. Sales tax fund, revenues are down $11,000, as Gary said earlier. Expenditures are up $7,000. Christmas payout saved us a little bit of money. Last year we spent $363,000 on the Christmas bonus. This year we paid $281,000. So that was good because some of the grants that we have in the past been able to fund the 13th check out of instead of drawing out of sales tax. We had to pull it this year because we didn't have as much money in those grants to pull from. So that kind of seesawed that quite well. Lunch fund, we had a deficit there of $51,000. In prior years, we've done a transfer to lunch from general fund of $200,000. This year we only did $100,000. So that could have easily been made up with an additional transfer, but we didn't do it. Maintenance fund, James has done a great job over there. He might want to take over the other three funds, I don't know. End of the year with a $77,000 increase. I know Nikki has questioned me on whether we could spend some of that money on various issues on that, so that we might end up with a deficit on that coming up in the next year for some of those projects that she's talking about. Pages 5, 6, and 7, and 8, that's the detail, that's the numbers on everything I just went over. Page 9 is all funds combined, so if you want to look at that, that's there for your review. Page 10 is the balance sheet, and it's just a good recap of how much money we got in all different places. First half is all cash. We have $8.2 million in the bank as of June 30th. The two yellow lines, that's the property taxes that we still have as receivables on the books. So that's right at $2 million, which means we'll lose about $100,000 a year in interest. So it would be great to collect that. Nikki and I are supposed to go
October
31st to Baton Rouge.
to speak before the tax.
Tax commission
Yeah.
judge or somebody about trying to because I mean, either we need the money or remit it back to the guy that has filed the protest, because he's losing the same amount of money.
It's just sitting there.
It's just
Not
sitting
doing
there
anybody any good.
in the sheriff's office earning 0% interest. And that's the way the account is designed, unfortunately. Let's see.
You talking about retirement?
I skipped over
PRSL?
time. Nikki hit me up on this earlier. Because I think all the superintendents were all excited. The retirement's going down 2.5% on teachers on our contribution. So that's going to make about a $300,000 all funds decrease. On general funds, be about $200,000. So we're saving $200,000 there. James and Nikki, I know, talked about buses and going the used route, which I know y'all were involved on that too. That's saving about another $70,000. Insurance has gone down $60,000, I believe, if I'm correct. So there's some positives there. The gigantic looming negative is MFP, and he and all the students that we have here are growing in number. So, and Randy and I talked about that before, 2 or 3 days ago, maybe last week, about, population just keeps on going down continuously, and that's the concern. So,
There's such a push for homeschool.
and that's the other side of it. We lose every time we lose a student. And I talk to Kaylee every now and then, how's the student council? Oh my gosh, it's never good news. The last page I passed out, that's just a recap of all the funds, and it shows the original budget, the revised budget, and where we landed for the end of the year on actual. There's not a lot of detail to it, it just shows you the big picture, all the money flows. And that's all I have. Which I'll be
All right, thank you, Dave. Item J is district leaders update.
Monica?
We've had some great, past 2 weeks, some great, PD, everybody's excited about being back. All of our early childhood teachers in the parish spent all day Monday with first day learning. It's gonna work hand in hand with that conscious discipline, but it's, teaching them how to, instead of someone accidentally taking to the office, learning how they've got to track it and see if you can find the triggers, and if we can do that with them while they're young, as they move up, then that should help them going into to K1 and they're from there. They finish up their last medication training tomorrow. With Head Start, there's so much training that's yearly that they have to repeat. So wrapping it up tomorrow, and all the kids will come Tuesday. I think right now we're sitting at 57 3-year-olds and 93 4-year-olds, 24 of which did not go to Kelly. And that's probably the biggest number we've had in a little while. So we're really gonna push this year and try to get more, coming that we can. We do still have the B3 seats at the daycare. Those will be refunded, I think, in September, and we don't know where we'll be with that. They haven't given a number, so just excited. All the teachers are back and ready. A lot of new faces, like with everywhere, but they're excited, ready to get going. And
Monica, can you explain the 24 did not go to Kelly?
So that's not mandatory, which neither is pre-K. So 24 chose not to apply to go. Now, some could have moved in.
So they didn't go anywhere?
No, well, some of them were at Lolly's daycare.
Okay.
I know about 6 were. So they just chose to leave them there, I guess, as a 3-year-old, rather than have them go to Kelly. It could have been transportation, parents working, whatever different reason. Or they could have just chose not to,
Does that create a bigger challenge for you?
Sometimes, because the ones that are there are getting that little basic, and it's very basic for just 3-year-olds, but still they're getting exposure to letters and sounds and the things that that when they come into pre-K, if they've already had that, just kind of like the pre-Kers going up to K. And we see it every year. There's kids who still aren't going to pre-K. They enter kindergarten without going. I don't know what the count is this year. Kim, do you know?
With Nikki,
It's like it's more and more every year.
with Miss Clarice, we had documentation and proven facts that it was in the best interest to put your kid in pre-K. Remember, we had the state of the art, the only one in the state that was, in operation that wasn't state funded. So I'm not saying make it mandatory, because I'm not into that, but it's almost like a negative if you don't put your kid in pre-K now.
So when we do the beginning of the year DILS testing, can y'all share and find out which kindergartners attended pre-K and pre-K 3, and then who didn't, and we can get that information to you. I think it's a good thing.
To your point, I'm just saying, I think it's a mishap for, parents do what they want to do. I'm not trying to take that, but I think from an educational standpoint, it's almost like if you don't put them in pre-K and they start in kindergarten versus the other kid that starts in pre-K, you already gonna have a deficit with,
Not in some cases.
well, in majority, which is, and when I say majority, I'm talking about maybe the high 90s. Because when you take a kid that already knows something, and this other kid don't know something, that's a problem within itself, because this kid already feel lesser than this particular kid. And when Miss Kennedy was there, you know, they did a, you know, like a boost, you know, to get parents to go, you know, visiting the homes, and, you know, they had the, you know, population going up. Not saying that you're
Well,
not.
and we're reinstating this year, when I first came to pre-K in 2003, we had home visits with two of the grants. Those grants stopped requiring them.
Right.
And, but of course, what Head Start does, so this year we're going back to that with the 4-year-olds even, back with the home visits. And so what we're doing, we're trying not to make them, we want them to get as many as they can, but we're gonna prioritize the ones that we know they need to get to, you know, to do that. And we've got a lot more family outreach stuff planned this year to try to get them in, see what's going on, push for showcasing it, getting it out there. But, you know, some people believe if they are even a family child care or whatever, you know, they love Miss Kaylee, Miss Kaylee's teaching my baby, and they're gonna be just fine. And I'm not knocking
Right.
anybody, but if they don't, it's the exposure to kids, the exposure to routines, the exposure to procedures, the curriculum, everything. I mean,
Once the emotions are taken out and the facts are dealt with,
Right.
it's in the best interest that you put them in, you know, pre-K. And I just don't know why. Now, Head Start, you know, that's questionable.
Yeah.
But, you know, pre-K, I just don't see why they would, you know, put a kid in pre-K.
I love Head Start.
Well, and for some grades, that makes a huge difference between them and going to kindergarten.
I had someone today talking about how y'all helped get him his son potty trained.
Right.
You know, so I mean, they said, I just don't know if we're gonna got it done at all, because so much goes on.
Because it's that consistency.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
it's-
when
yeah.
mom's working and even
Yeah.
taken to daycare, whatever, sometimes there's too many kids there to do that. But down there with the ratios the way they are, they do. They've got that schedule and they follow it and they keep with it, so.
Well, I've had 3 go through your program, and y'all did very well with all 3 of them.
I want to kind of hit on the professional development that we have provided for our teachers coming back that are going to address some of this. So, Chrissy, I know y'all had some IC.
Oh, yeah, we have 2 programs for CTE teachers. I purchased ICD, which is just a platform that has lessons and extra resources they can use for whatever classes they teach. And then Pathful Explore and Connect, which is the career exploration platform. It has flex lessons in it, but it has videos. Like, I want to be an engineer. It has videos on the different types. Somebody that is an engineer telling what they did and how they did it, and so you can show those in class. So they got training for those.
We did get the 2 new buses, in the last week of July. They hit the road Tuesday, so you put them beside a brand new bus that I bought over the past 2 years, you can't tell the difference. I do have a concern, voiced this to Ms. McCann. Parents or residents in the Kelly area on 506 West are getting telephone calls from the DOT about the bridges, that they're still not to be completed for another year. So Ms. McCann, will you
I did.
elaborate on that?
I reached out to Glenn Womack, who took my message and see what he said, and asked about that. And I fussed, you know, not that he's in control, but I said, this is costing us $17,000 to $18,000 a year, because we're having to run an extra route to get those kids. And he said the last update he got was a couple of weeks ago. It's not good. The contractor went bankrupt, and the state's having to put them in default, so the bonding company has to get someone to finish. Not done overnight, but I will add it to the top of the list and send it to the Secretary of DOTD. So it doesn't sound good. So that's where we are.
But all they have.
We've been doing it for 6 years.
And it's just one little stretch.
Yeah.
Okay, all that's left to do that I can see when I've been down there, the bridges are fixed. Is the guardrails have to be put up, and then the asphalt has to be laid between the bridges to the existing highway. That's
A lot
all.
of people going through there anyway.
Yeah, you'll help.
We're not.
Oh, I know.
So James, are we trying to use a big bus, or we trying to use a little small bus we got?
We're using a small bus to run 126 West to Childress Road in that area, and you come back out the same direction.
Ms. Greer? promise. I work, but we're gonna work hard. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes that you don't see, but we are working hard.
She also, she's not gonna say this, but she trained our secondary teachers in our junior high and high school English teachers and special education teachers and interventionists on the secondary science of reading. So that was a 3-day pretty intense training, and so, I was proud of her for that.
So on that note, because the government likes to give us money for failing, we got CLSD for UIN schools, which is our urgent intervention needed schools, which is Grayson, Columbia, and the high school. We had to pick a strategy to implement with these funds, and we chose the pre-teaching strategy, and they've already had their first session led by Aaron with ANET and Des, who we're all familiar with, and they loved it. They learned a lot, had a lot of eye-opening revelations, because it talks about universal design, inclusive practices for how to reach all students. So that was just the beginning, and they were very attentive, and everybody got that training. One other thing I want y'all to be aware of, in case you're not, Act 260, which is the numeracy law that they passed. We are already, I feel like, ahead of the game. We spent some time in back-to-school PD days making sure everybody got connected to the platform that Kaylee loves. She's the manager of the platform, and it's been such a headache because basically, just like anything, the State Department's building the plane while they're flying it. And so we're having to learn it as we go with sometimes with instructions that don't work, right, Kaylee? And so it's frustrating, but once you get in it, I've completed 3 modules myself, trying to get it paced out for the teachers. Your 4 through 8 teachers have to have the training, math teachers, and they have to finish it by August 1st of 2025. I know nobody likes to be told what to do and how to do it, but it's good stuff. I really feel like it's going to strengthen their content knowledge and help them understand where the missing link is in the progression of students from 3rd grade to 4th grade to 5th grade to 6th grade. So your 8th grade math teacher is going to see, oh, how does this 3rd grade standard or what they're learning in 3rd grade connects to what I'm doing in my 8th grade classroom, and vice versa.
We've been asking for some math support. I mean, obviously, we need support in that. And this numeracy training is equivalent to the science of reading training that we've been doing for a couple of years with literacy. So we're finally at a point where they're addressing math.
Yeah, and the lady that pushed for this, she's pushing for K-12 to be in the law. So what we're doing in K1 and 2-3 is they're gonna go ahead and start them because we feel like it's coming. They're gonna go ahead and start them, it's just not gonna be as jam-packed as your 4 through 8 people that have to have it finished by August 1st. And so, also with the money, you mentioned Studyville, the high-dose tutoring. We got that money, we really didn't know it was coming until really late in the summer. And we think we have a vendor. They're gonna come in and provide 3 days a week, 30 minutes, extra intervention on top of what we are providing. So Maria and I have been working all day today, trying to identify who could benefit the most from, because we only got $75,000, that's enough to service 150 kids. We have more than 150 kids in intervention, obviously, in 4th and 5th grade. So we targeted 4th and 5th grade. Specifically, we gave math the most attention, and then
4th grade, because the 3rd grade going up to 4th, we needed the extra.
So on what you guys talking about, was it input from other individuals, or you just thinking that this is gonna work? I mean, how does this work?
The state gave us money and told us how to spend it.
They told you how to spend it?
Yes.
If you don't spend it the way they want you to, you don't get it.
You don't get it.
That's the
They
way.
gave us
But the
several-
vendor
See,
we're partnering
And
with,
that may be one of the issues, Nikki, that may have to be explained, because teachers, they feel like they already know how to teach. They feel like they need little to no guidance, which in some cases they need it. But at the end of the day, you know, when you're just telling a person this, and you're not telling them where it's coming from, they may blame you.
no, they know, we
Yeah.
went over this and they've been knowing this. They just don't know we don't know what it's gonna look like yet, because we haven't actually signed a contract with the vendor.
The state tells you what you can do, and then they tell you who you can buy from. They put the vendors on a list, and you can only use the vendors on their list. So,
And we met
but
with
where
this
you coming
vendor.
from? Sometimes a 25-year teacher don't want to be told nothing.
That's all I'm saying.
But a 4-year teacher is going, tell me.
Yeah, these tutoring people are not telling them anything, they're just
They're
coming in
working
and
with kids.
servicing children.
yeah.
They're not telling the teacher anything to do, they're not touching our people, they're touching our kids.
So they'll pull the kids out of the division.
And where do they come from?
All over. They have, highly qualified teachers that have been science of reading trained, that go through also their training, and they vet them, they employ
Yeah, they
teachers.
try to
They're based
recruit.
out of Alexandria. right?
Yeah, and they try to
In Baton
recruit
Rouge.
retired teachers in your local area. For us, most of them are still working for us,
Yeah.
but, you know. We'll see.
Ms. Meredith, will you talk a little bit about yours?
Yeah, so I know Mr. Barton, was asking about staffing earlier, so I do wanna highlight, you know, since I've been in this role, I think I've sat here every fall and said, well, we're not really staffed, and a lot of us are doing extra jobs, but, you know, we're just gonna figure it out. But this year, in the system as a whole, there's one new special education teacher and one new member of related services, and that's it. The other 40-something folks
Good job.
all came back this year. And all of the things that he talked about are true. When we started looking at professional development, I didn't have to start this year with, this is an IEP. I was able to bring in 2 consultants that work with LDOE, and one's Roxanne West, and you might have seen her name in the news because she's the one that the State Department put in charge of East Baton Rouge Parish Special Education to fix that place. So she came in and worked with our teachers on some higher level things about instruction, and I think are really gonna move the needle, but we have had a hard time getting there because the turnover was just so high the past couple of years. And then we had another person from LDO who come in, her name's Rebecca Hanberry, and she works with them specifically on April Dunn, which is some legislation in the high school space. And it is still very confusing to all of us that deal with it, but she actually did it. So she came in and trained us all, you know, through LDOE on that. So it's really allowed me to be able to elevate what teachers are getting this out of professional development, because we've got so many folks that came back. You want me to talk anything about the transitions? Okay. Wait, at the high school.
If there's.
Clifton.
Clifton, yes.
Okay, so,
Not a person.
Sorry.
through the transitions grant, you know, every grant that we get, you guys hear us talk about, you know, you get X amount of monies for this, X amount of monies for this, X amount of money for that. So the transitions grant that I keep talking about, a lot of the money that they gave us is dedicated to professional development. So one of the highlights, though, that they really want us to be working on is changing teacher mindsets about children with disabilities and what really is the ceiling for a child with disabilities. And we were able to use some of that money. Again, one of the vendors, they told me you have to spend this amount of money with this vendor. But one of the other vendors we were allowed to partner with is LDI out of LSU, and it's the LSU Leadership Development Institute. And you may want to, I mean, you're a little bit more fluent in it, but it's part of the grant, and it's something that's going to trickle down from the teachers to the students to a parent night and even into the workforce when we get these kids out, some training. But it's really about teaching kids to see the strengths in themselves and teachers to be able to talk to kids about these are the things that are amazing about you, and especially for kids with disabilities. A lot of times, even our speaker, those of you that heard Coach Principal Hart, he even named in that training, a lot of times when you're talking about a child with a disability, you'll say, Carrie has ADHD and she's bad and she's going to talk back. And this training is all about teaching us all how to flip the language in that Carrie likes to learn. She's a strategic thinker. Yeah, she's a woo. That's one of the things that means you really like to party. My least, I'm a 34 in woo, which means I have 0 like to party in me. But some people have it, and it's just about us. And we even want our parents to learn to talk to their kids in that strengths-based language about these are the things that are amazing about you every day, and this is how you can make hard things easier by using the things that you're good at.
So with that money, 2 years ago, I went through a Changemaker program and did the Clifton Strengths, if you've ever heard of it. It's a strengths finder. It's an assessment that you take. And the idea behind it is that we're all made differently, and we're to use our talents and our strengths in ways that accelerate what brings us joy and what leads us to what we do. And also to help understand that not everybody's like us, and so we have to learn that this is where they're acting out of their strengths, and so we have different ways of getting along with each other. It was transformational for our entire team. I took all the leaders through it, and so I am on the LSU advisory board now, and when I went down to the advisory meeting and they were talking about their programs, as soon as they said we have Clifton Strengths for students now, I was like, this is what we need, because I want every student to leave understanding they have value, and there's something good in everyone, and this is who you are. You don't have to be like somebody else. You're yourself. And so the model that they built out for us was to have our teachers all go through it in the fall. And so they had their session on Monday where they all took a test, and they're all going to get a personal coach for 3 one-hour virtual sessions to help every adult on our campus work through their strengths and how to understand how they can use their strengths to work with kids. And then they're going to do a training in either December or January on how to teach kids to use their strengths. And then every one of our students from 9 to 12, we can use disability money, but every student gets to do it because every student, we're working with inclusion so that we're not isolating. Every student on the high school campus will go through that same Clifton Strengths assessment, and then the teachers will then be able to help coach them as to how to use their talents and how that might look when you enter the workforce. It's all a workforce development type idea. And then at the very end of the spring, we'll have a 1-hour virtual session with parents, so the parents can understand how to celebrate their kids' strengths and how to push them. So I'm super excited.
Sometimes parents don't even know their kids' strengths.
Right.
And oftentimes it's the school that identifies it, to the parent. And sometimes the parent don't know how to elevate it because, they're limited or minimized with, because I've seen that for a long time.
If I could find a way to put you all through it, I would. Because it really, when you identify, my number one is relator and the things that I do, but a lot of times you have what we call basements and balconies. So your balcony is where you're really making it, and I love people, and I love working with people, and I love making things happen. But one of the things underneath it was like, oh yeah, I did get called down to the office for that a couple times, because I tend to get in other people's lanes. And as a principal I did that, as a director I did that, and I kind of see this is what happens. I'm not trying to get in your lane, it's just who I am, but me knowing that helps me to say, pump the brakes, Nikki, this is not your lane, let somebody else do this. So it is such a valuable.
Your lane is trying to make everybody happy.
So.
I am also, that is one of mine.
But you know what, Nikki? You have improved.
Oh, well, good.
You're now seeing that no matter how hard you can, you can't. But I think the adjustment is still, there.
I'm still growing.
Yeah,
I'm still
which is
growing.
good.
Yeah. I'll never stop learning and growing.
So this identifies each individual student's strength? Is
It
that what
will,
you're saying?
yes, they will
Okay.
take this assessment, and it's really an interesting assessment, because it's like on a scale from here to here, and you have to say which one do you like, and it may be that you really like one, or you really like the other, or you don't, but based on all that, it takes those questions and it dumps them in a bucket, and then it comes back and it tells you, and y'all, we had some resistant people on Monday who came in and they didn't want to participate, but then when they read their strengths, they were like, oh, this is me. I've never said this out loud, but this is so me. And it was great for us to sit and listen, and Rebecca and I were like, pinch me, this is wonderful, because they were talking about how and it really just kind of helps you understand, I do rub people the wrong way when I do this, but it's because I'm really passionate about this. And so we did a lot of activities that morning where we had to break into different groups with people who think like us, and yeah, I could totally get out on all
Yeah,
this.
but in the end, what it's really about is the teachers have to understand it before we can put it in front of the kids. And what, you know, where we're really trying to get is this place where all of our kids really understand, you know, where
The
they're-
value.
Yeah.
That they have value and they have strengths that they can use.
So,
But is
Rebecca,
the-
go ahead, no, go ahead.
But like, this third grade class, you identify each student's strengths.
Well, it only goes to ninth grade right now because it's not valid for younger kids.
Okay, but what I'm, okay, but as a school system, right now, do we take our third graders, and when we pass them off to the fourth grade, are we doing anything as far as letting the fourth grade teachers know
They have transition meetings every summer.
each individual student?
Yes, we discuss
And the
every
teachers,
kid.
and their teachers give this on each student, right?
Now, Kim, the only drawback to that is at one time, the labeling existed, you know, of a kid that was coming from, let's say, the Glass family. Because one kid was bad, then that kid never had a chance because he's already got a strike against him. And I think a lot of times the kid is diminished when that, you know, happens. But what I do like, Rebecca, on that is because sometimes you have to know how to relate to the kid.
Yes, well, you have to change adult
Yeah,
mindsets
it's-
before
Well, I
you
would
change
hope,
kids.
I would hope the third grade teacher isn't passing on to the fourth grade teacher by saying, little Johnny's a bad kid.
Well, it happens.
Well, I would
No,
hope.
no, I'm not saying now.
Yeah,
I'm not saying now.
we're changing mindsets, and we're
Right.
changing language, and we're changing perceptions, and a lot of the work that we're doing with this DIP grant is inclusive, is that we don't have those, we find the strengths in
Right.
every kid, and we focus on those while we address the deficiencies. Yeah, but every kid has value.
Yeah, 'cause
Every
But
that,
also
kid.
they need to recognize that value themselves
Yes.
and to respect others.
Other people.
you
And just
know,
because we're
there's-
different does not mean
Right.
we have to be enemies.
And we're all working on that on this road too. Respecting there's our woo up there in the front.
Kaylee is a woo.
It's not the-
Kaylee and
Shocker, right? Spoiler alert.
so Rebecca, do you find sometimes that it's kind of hard to break a treat when the kid is coming from here thinking that something, you know, what they're taught at home, not necessarily the negative stuff, but just taught that maybe I'm better or, you know, I'm smarter. Do you find?
I think that it would help all of our kids see, you know, I mean, I'll be honest, like, the one that David and I have in common in our top 5 is connectedness. And I was very upset to find out that I'm apparently a flake. Because connectedness means that you think everything happens for a reason because of your faith. And you don't get upset about little bitty things because you're really thinking about how this impacts, you know, everything in the world. And ask anybody that works with me, when you want me to be really upset about a tiny problem, it's not going to happen because I really am trying to save the whole world in my mind at that moment. But I've learned that it actually is very frustrating for people when I do that instead of responding to their immediate problems.
So it has helped them grow.
Yeah, so it's really helped. So I think I would love for my kid, I mean, he's 17, so he's gonna, you know, he's at the high school, he's gonna get to do it this year. I would love for him to be able to say, you know, my strength is this. And because of that, I'll know better how to study this way. And I'll know better how to get along with this kid in my class that gets on my nerves better that way. And it may be that my parents have really pushed me to do this or not be this, but this is actually my skill set, and because I know it, I can do what's right for me, not necessarily where my parents have pushed me to your point.
James, what was your skill set?
I have no idea.
Yes, you do. Tell them it's on your top five.
I don't pay attention. My skill set, I just, everything.
I would say,
Whatever
Probably
I'm
has
told to do, whatever I'm
strategic in
told to
there.
do, I
I'm
do.
sure
it.
he
Oh,
did.
I'm sure he did.
He has strategic in there.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to look?
I'm trying to plan everything out as best.
organization,
See,
I can
that-
tell you. I work
that
with
is-
He's
people.
very organized.
Yeah,
Organization.
that's who you are.
It is.
And
And one
that's the
of,
reason why I asked.
one of mine is
Yeah.
individualization. And what that is I do. I'm proud of the fact that I can look at people and I know what their skill sets are, and I can put you in a position where you're going to be the very best version of yourself. James is one of those people. Marie is another one of those people that you know what they're good at, and you put them in places where they can be successful and have joy.
I'm
So-
making a motion, you send this to the board so we can find out what our skill. Can you send that to us?
We can do that at a retreat. We
Yeah.
can plan a retreat. Oh, let's do it. Let's do it.
Look, we're all excited.
We will geek out there.
It will not be recorded.
Then I'll say yours after me.
Hey, I got 2 years left, so I don't, like, come on, IDA-L.
Okay, moving on. Ralph, you got anything to say?
Cell phone, student cell phone update, you know, that was a hot button issue. We've had 0 students refuse to turn in the cell phones. For the most part, everything's gone very smoothly. We've had to call 0 ambulances for separation anxiety for any of the students during the course of the school day. So 2 soft start days and a full school day, and we've had no meltdowns.
And Nick, I did go to the high school, talk with Atlanta, talk with, the principal, the assistant principal. I talked to, almost every teacher there, and I talked to, a lot of students in each individual class. And, I think they were well pleased. Nobody had really, any opposition. There were some who didn't, you know, really understand fully. The explanation was that, you know, it's not a punishment, it's not a form of punishment. There are other variables that go with, the cell phone, and I wanted to see it for myself. I think the metal detector, I went off, but I was kind of happy to see, and I did ask the teachers to give, that I talked to, give Elena a chance to grow. If there's any issues that they may have, to go and talk to her, but she needs them to buy in too. Favoritism should be almost out the window. If we can be consistent, I think we can get to where we want to be. And, you know, thanks to Clay for being out, you know, this morning directing traffic.
That's right.
Sheriff, I saw that, so.
He's faithful every first day of school.
I was lit, you know, you know, satisfied with what I saw at the high school, because it was magnificent.
We'll relay that. Brian, you got anything from my team?
We've been working on getting people set up, new employees, new students, all that kind of stuff, all the new programs and things, accounts made and organized. We also went around the summer and picked up every laptop in every school and updated antivirus stuff, made sure they were getting Windows updates, that sort of thing. So we've done our laptops, we got to do the desktops still, so we're working on that. Other than that, I mean,
We couldn't do it without them.
That's a big job.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, the superintendent's.
Mine is quick. You have a list in the back of your folder of all the contracts that were up for a 2-year renewal. And so I just gave you a list of those.
Nick, I wanted to ask you, so Kaylee, let me see, Dina and all, their contract too, right?
It depends on when her rotation
Yeah,
is.
because I know
Not
some,
everybody's
yeah,
on
some
the
of
same
these jobs
2-year
were just,
rotation.
yeah, they were just hiring, so if your contract is fine, I just wanted to make,
Yeah.
to
These
make
are just
sure.
the people whose contracts were up for renewal.
Right.
For their 2-year renewal. So we renewed those. Angela's getting those all signed for us. Next thing I wanted to mention is that we do have a J Campus app available now. Kaylee put that out on Facebook. It's super, you just go to your app store and download it, and it's the same information you could get from J Campus, but it's the app version of it, so it's a little easier to navigate. And she also worked with J Campus to update our online information, so when parents log in the first time, it requires you to go ahead and update all your information, which our IT department is gonna be so thrilled with, because it forces the parents to put the information in the right boxes, which means when we send out text messages or emails, it's the right information. And so we were happy to hopefully alleviate a little bit of that back to school paperwork that way. So I wanted to say that so everybody knows, go do it, so we can get that all updated.
I got one thing before we close. I've been taking a lot of flack at home about these leopard print glasses that I have. And I took a picture of Randy. So, I ain't worried no more. I just gonna flash the picture, say,
Anybody else?
I've got something.
All right.
The bash, Caldwell Bank bash
Yes,
was awesome.
it was.
The stadiums was full. I think everybody got everything they could possibly
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
That was a
Really
great
good
move
to have
to move it to the stadium.
It was.
Maybe you may want to mention the parent, not parent, like the job.
Yeah, we are, we got an email, Katrina, we're working on a parent, a planning group, but tentatively, we have planned it for September 19th to do our career fair that we did last year. We did it in the spring, and it was hard to work around spring sports. So the feedback we received was, let's do it in the fall when we're only working around football. And so tentatively, we've scheduled that for September 19th.
So Maria, you, my lovely Miss Johnny, I would like for y'all to, at least be a part of it, to kind of see it.
And I think it's a Zoom.
Yeah, yeah.
The first, yeah, it's a Zoom.
Because you guys use that a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
What day is that?
September 19th will be the actual event, but there is a planning meeting on August the 14th.
Next week,
I won't be able to attend, but I will get.
I think it's the 15th.
I think it is.
The planning meeting, yeah, I think it's just Thursday.
When is the actual date?
It's September the 19th is the fair.
Okay.
Is it gonna be at the gym?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do it in January, last time. All right, don't forget before you leave to sign up for a time to,
Is that everybody?
okay.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a second?
Second. Third.
All right, y'all come look at